Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, just to make sure that you know where you are and what we're doing here. This is a seminar particularly on having good sadhana when you're a parent. So we're focusing here on two very related aspects of parenting. One is engaging your children in regular sadhana, and the other is keeping up your regular sadhana. So we're looking at those in combination with each other. Okay, so I want you to think of how do children benefit by having regular sadhana? And write down as many ways as you can. You can do it individually or you can work with other people and then we'll share that together. All right. So if you could just tell me what you've thought of, and we'll see if they fit in any of these categories. Maybe even you've thought of some categories that I haven't thought of. You're just going to make sure everybody gets papers? Very good. I guess I should also apologize at first, especially to... No worries. Especially those of you from Indian background, that I don't have any culture. I'm really sorry. Somehow or other, Prabhupada's gotten me to worship Krishna, and I've tried to develop some culture over the years, but it's something like when people dye their hair and the actual color always shows. So I've tried to take up something of real culture, and I'm only partially successful. So if I behave really like an American, I apologize. I know that I will, I know that I do, and I can't seem to just make it go away. So I hope that you will be kind to me, and just don't take birth in America next life. Don't be stuck with it. So we could go around. No, I mean really, if you think I'm just outrageously rude and stuff, I'm sorry. I try, I really do try. If we could go around and you could suggest what you've come up with, and we'll see if we can put it in these categories. Okay, so people could, somebody's willing to start? What you've come up with as the benefits? Yes?
Become more natural for them, it's not like rules and regulations.
More natural, okay. Where do you think we should put that? We can put that under habits, perhaps? They'll become natural. And maybe under attachment to Krishna also? Okay. Okay, thank you. Someone else, benefits. Yes, sir?
More disciplined and performing their duties, no distractions by useless material.
Okay, to learn, put that maybe under responsibility?
Yeah.
That they will develop discipline?
Yeah.
And duty. Something that's more and more lacking in the modern world, isn't it? Even a concept that it's a good thing is lacking. What to speak of the thing itself. Yes? Creativity. So where can we put that under? Fun and play. Okay. And those of you who got here early or on time, those of you who got here earlier on time and you had time to read the paper on Srila Prabhupada's quotes, you saw that Srila Prabhupada was speaking about how important it was for the children to be able to have fun and to play. That reminds me that one, besides again apologizing for the fact that the diacritic fonts didn't turn out, I also want to bring your attention to the fact that when Srila Prabhupada was on the planet, practically all of the children in the Hare Krishna movement were very young. So most of the children were under the age of 6 or 7, and practically all of them were under the age of 10. So you need to take Srila Prabhupada's instructions about children's education in that context. So when Prabhupada is saying, let them play like they're cows eating the prasadam, and then let them go out and play and do a little ABC, he's talking about children who are about 4 or 5 years old. He's not talking about children who are 12. That's just a little aside that's important to keep in mind. Because sometimes people take some of those instructions from Srila Prabhupada and say, you know, when you're 25, you should just be acting like you're a cow and just studying a little ABC. Okay. Others? benefits for the children. Yes?
They learn to prioritize as Krishna, as in center everything to Krishna.
Oh. Learn to prioritize having Krishna at the center. Where we put that? Attachment to Krishna. Did you prioritize with an S? Yes, you do. Okay, another one? Yes?
And to develop a Krishna conscious relationship with your family.
Oh. I don't have that here. Lovely. That's sort of, we could say that's a subset of here. And I like that so much, I'm going to write it here for the next time I teach this. Very nice. I really like that. Okay, some more? Yes?
Regularized life.
I'm sorry?
Regularized life.
Have regularized life. Okay, I think we have under habits, lifetime habits, have a regular life. Regularity in life, we could say. Most children really thrive on structure. On having some knowledge about what am I going to do when. I know when I should give you some background about me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be nice. All right. I couldn't have done that before because you were all like coming in and drips and drops. So let me do things really out of order here and give you a little background about myself. So I officially joined the Hare Krishna movement in 1973. My first contact was in 67. I still haven't become a devotee. I'm working on it. Becoming a devotee is not such a small thing. I got married in 1973, and we had 3 children. They're now 36, almost 37, 32, no, we're supposed to be 33, she's now 33, and 30. So I have 2 sons and a daughter, and we have 6 grandsons, and 4 granddaughters, and 1 grandchild on the way. And my oldest son is traveling with me, so that's the young man you saw. I told him this seminar wouldn't interest him, so he's up doing something else. But you saw him at the morning program. And I started teaching nursery school when my oldest son was about 1.5 years or 2. At first, I didn't like it at all. I was told, well, you're just watching the children so the parents can do something useful. Basically, I was told, what you're doing isn't useful, but what the parents are doing while you watch the children is useful, which didn't enliven me very much. In other words, I was only useful indirectly. I was useful because I was facilitating somebody else to be useful. So I didn't find that particularly exciting. And then later on, I met a devotee named Jyotirmayi, who changed my whole view of taking care of children. She said, we're taking care of the children for the children. We don't care about what the parents are doing. They can go to sleep. They can do whatever. We're doing this for the children. So she changed my whole perspective. And then she trained me how to be a teacher. Altogether, I ran a nursery school, either taught in or ran a nursery school. Nursery school means somewhere between age 2 and 5. One of the nursery schools we ran was between age 14 months and 3. I did that all together for 5 years. And then due to some circumstances, the academic school, the Gurukula, in which our child was enrolled, closed. And the GBC asked us to start a school. So, I don't know how long all of you have been in ISKCON, but in the old ISKCON, we had a concept that material qualifications were not important. If you were attending Mangal Artik and chanting 16 rounds, that was your qualification. So my husband said to the GBC, we don't know how to run a school. And he said, oh, Krishna will help you. Just go do it. Oh, the wedding. Okay. We are going to model today how to learn something with many challenges. Which would be good practice for parenting. Okay. So anyway, I ended up becoming one of the teachers in the Gurukula. My first class was of older girls who all came from some sort of troubled background. One of them, her mother had just recently died, and she was being raised by a stepfather. Another one of them, her mother had died when she was 2, and she had been very mistreated when she was very young. I mean, I had every child I had some really serious problem going on in their life. So those are my first students. And not only that, but most of them were academically way behind. I mean, one of them was 11, and she was reading at the level of a 7-year-old. And she was the one who had been beaten and whose mother had died when she was 2. So I really had... My first academic teaching experience was quite challenging. And again, in those days in ISKCON, we didn't value material qualifications. So I decided that I needed some material qualifications, but I had to do it a little secretly. And I started going out to seminars, and because then everyone would say I was in Maya if I was learning anything practical. So I went out and took a lot of professional level seminars. And I had left college. Can we at least have the door closed, please? Maybe that door can be locked so that people have to come through this door. That would be much better, if there's a way to lock that door. Maybe even a sign on it. Can everyone move up ahead again? Except me. Half a meter, please. So people can move. So I had left university to join the Hare Krishna movement. Again, when I joined, that was the preaching. The preaching was drop your school, drop your job, maybe even drop your family and just move in the ashram and surrender to Krishna because you might die tomorrow. So that was the mood. So I had dropped out of college. And later on, because once I became a teacher, I went back. I got a bachelor's degree in education and religion. And then later I got a master's degree in school administration, an MSA. So it's like an MBA, but it's specific for schools. And I simultaneously got my PhD in education, particularly in educational leadership. So that qualifies me in the States to run what they call a school district. Can we please, okay, I'm going to get really insistent about this now. Can we please lock that door? Like lock, there's a lock on the door. Please lock the door. Please lock the door. It's impossible to lock. Thank you. All right. So altogether, I was a teacher for, I think, about 27 years. And of those 27 years, 18 of those years, I ran a school. I ran a school in ISKCON, a Gurukula. And that meant a school for children aged 5 to 18. Then 1 year, as part of my doctoral degree, I was running a government school, a government primary school of about 450 children. So one of the things I noticed as a teacher was the lack of good teaching materials. And so just recently, just about a year ago, we completed a Learn to Read program. So it's a full course for teaching children to read age 5 to 7. And it has all of the books and all of the activity books and like that. And that's available on the internet. And we produced a lot of other materials. Actually, Shiyasoda also helped me with that. She was one of the artists for that one book is not inconsequential. So she was one of the artists for one of our books. And it's really unique because our Learn to Read program, it fully follows the top international systems for how to teach reading. So it's a completely professional program. At the same time, it's completely about Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada wanted something like that back in the 60s and 70s. He wanted us to produce top quality curriculum that was Krishna conscious. So we finally did it, many, many years later. Those of you who get back to Godhead magazine, there'll be an article about this in the January, February issue. And if you want more information, I have some samples here, and I'd be happy to show you. So that's something about my background. part of what I did as a Gurukul teacher, for 17 years of the time that I was a Gurukul teacher, I was taking our students to the morning program. And then if you add the years before I became a Gurukul teacher, so that would be an additional 7 years I was taking just my own children. And that meant I was taking anywhere between 10 to 30 children of a variety of ages again 5 to 18, with me to the morning program. Okay? So that's my background as far as training children as sadhana. As far as my own sadhana, I've always, thank you Krishna, chanted at least 16 rounds and 3 Gayatris and read Prabhupada's books and done my deity worship every day, etc. There was a time, till not that many years ago, when I always went to the morning program at the temple. I always attended, Mangalartik, the whole program at the temple. And gradually I've been preferring sometimes also to have a program at home. So I've also had an experience with doing that, or having a program at home with my family. So that's my background as far as this seminar. Anything else just quickly you want to know about me before we go on with what we're doing? It's kind of awkward introducing yourself, isn't it? What can be done?
Did you write any books?
Well, we just wrote, 83 books.
No, that's for the children to read. But
Besides for the children. We have the Vaikuntha Children, which is a 500-page book for adults, which is basically it's how to run a school. And that book is up on our site, So that book is up on our site for free download. It's on the free ebook section. I should tell you that we're in the process of coming out with a second edition of that. So probably within about a month, we'll have an upgraded version of the Vaikuntha Children book. The other things that I've done, I compiled a book to teach Bhagavad Gita. Unfortunately, that's out of print. And the electronic files we have are in an old format. So we're struggling to get that back into print. And then what will be in the new Vaikuntha Children, and you can also see on that page with the free download, is all the articles I wrote for about 9 years. I was an education columnist for Back to Godhead magazine. I'm still one of the editors. But I particularly wrote about 8 years worth, 8 times 6, so about probably 45 altogether, articles on different aspects of education. And Krishna willing, we're going to be coming out very soon with a little book on chanting to be published in India. So I'm in the last stages of getting the illustrations done for that. And if that works out well, then I hope to publish quite a few more through that venue. Anything else? Anything else you want to know about me before you went? Sorry to do things out of order. No? I can erase that part. Okay, back to where we were with our musical accompaniment in the background. So more benefits for children of having some regular sadhana. Yes?
I'm not sure where we put this. We help each other, like children help us and we help them in remembering Krishna.
Maybe we could put that in a spiritual family relationship.
Okay.
Would that be a good place to put it? Okay. By the way, what time am I supposed to go on to?
1 o'clock.
You're joking. We won't go on. 1 o'clock. Okay. Some other benefits of regular sadhana. Yes.
Skills in arts.
Excuse me?
Skills in arts.
Skills in arts and music.
Dance. Yeah.
Okay. So we have that. I think we have that somewhere.
Fun play.
Maybe we should have. Maybe we should have that almost separate, but okay, skills. Okay. Yes.
Is there a giving of the they realize that spirituality is a science rather than sentiment.
It's actually hard with the drums. Can you speak a little bit louder?
Was saying as they grow up, they realize that spirituality is a science rather than a sentiment.
That spirituality is a science.
Yeah.
Let's put that under spiritual knowledge. So we can put that gradually. That's a very good point. I'm just thinking in that regard that my daughter-in-law's father is now giving classes to our mutual grandchildren once a week on the whole science of Krishna consciousness. They're being homeschooled, and I got for him a Bhakti training manual from Bhaktivedanta Manor, which he's using for classes in Krishna consciousness that go through all of the aspects of our tradition, our philosophy, and our practice. So he's giving systematic classes to the children on the practice of Krishna consciousness. I should mention that this particular benefit, and this is jumping ahead a little bit I suppose, but I should mention that this particular benefit you can often do better when you have a morning program at home than at the temple. Can you guess why?
You can get them engaged.
You can get them engaged, which deals with quite a number of things here like this. But you can get them engaged particularly in the classes. So the unfortunate reality is that the majority of the classes that take place in our temples are not that relevant for the children. So that it's nice to sometimes have, at least sometimes, have classes and discussions that are really geared for their questions and their needs and their participation. Okay, some other benefits?
They become better organized in their life?
Better organized. And I think S? I'll learn eventually. I was trying to make a point about this before, that children really thrive on structure. I mean, not that you should be regimented like, a military barracks, but it's very helpful for children to have some idea of what's coming next. And it was when I was talking about this that I realized that you didn't know much about me. But I was thinking how when my children were young, I used to do a lot of service, and people would say, how do you do that? And it was because that our family was basically on a schedule, and the reason we were on a schedule was that we took our children to the morning program. In other words, we didn't say, okay, we're going to have the home on a schedule. But by going to the morning program, we naturally were on a schedule. It was a natural, effortless result. I mean, going to the morning program took effort, but it just was a concomitant factor of going to the morning program. And a concomitant factor of that was that I pretty much knew when my kids were going to sleep and when they were going to eat, and I knew that I had a bulk of time, and I could organize my own life, not only easily, very easily to get my own sadhana done, but to do quite a bit of other service as well. And this is something that I hear a lot now, especially from the women. Well, I have one baby and I can't chant my 16 rounds anymore. And whenever I hear that, I just think, huh? Why not? But I found that mostly that's because people aren't getting up early anymore. So I had one devotee recently asked me, how do I get my 16 rounds done with a baby? I said, wake up early. Because if you don't wake up until 7, there's so many things to do at 7. You have to immediately make breakfast, or even at 6, so you have to do this, and 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 by the time you can sit down to chant, it's 2 in the afternoon. And then you're not so focused, and then it takes you... Is there any way to keep that door closed so that it stays closed? And then, it's taking you 6 or 8 hours to chant your rounds because you're so unfocused. And then people say, well, it's just too much. I can't spend 6 hours a day chanting my rounds. So this is a real benefit. Having some regular program is a real benefit also to the parents. Other benefits of having the children have a morning sadhana. Yes?
I think they develop that wisdom to be able to discriminate that devotees are very caring and the outside world is quite insensitive, and I think they get that understanding as well, because if they have regular sadhana.
I'm not sure how I'm going to react to that. All right, let's... can I tell you my personal reaction to that? So, first of all, let's see. Let me find out something about you. Who here has been practicing strict Krishna consciousness for at least 5 years? 10 years? 15? Less than 1? Less than 1? Anybody less than 1? One of the interesting things you find is that those of us who are trying to be devotees of Krishna, that we don't immediately become what we'd like to be. I don't know for you, but I know for me, I'm not immediately what I want to be. My ideals of what kind of person I should be are way up there, and who I really am is not quite way up there. I disappoint myself probably at least once a day, sometimes 10 times a day. And on some occasions 10 times in an hour, with, you know, who I really am. And unfortunately, because we're all in the process, that sometimes you'll find that devotees are not so caring. And one thing that I wish that somebody had told me in the beginning was that if you do find some devotees who are not so caring, and sometimes, that person who's not so caring, who's a devotee, might even be someone who's well respected, or who has a title or position, who you really think, this person should be a real, great devotee. So, some of our really great devotees in ISKCON are not known. They have no title, they have no position. Some of the devotees I know who are the most genuinely, deeply advanced in Krishna consciousness are just making garlands for the deities. And nobody in their community even knows that in their mind they've realized they're a cowherd boy or a gopi and they're playing with Krishna. They're unknown. Everyone just thinks, oh, it's one of the devotees and that's a particularly blissful devotee. And some people who have the big titles and the position and respect are very materialistic. There's not a one-to-one correspondence. So most of our leaders are certainly also very advanced, but not all. And there are many people who, they're not big lights and they're very advanced. So you will sometime, I can practically speaking guarantee it, that you will sometimes have some dealing with someone who apparently is a devotee and whose behavior is not up to the standard. And one thing that you can do when that happens is remember, well, I'm trying to be a devotee and my behavior isn't always up to the standard either. So that's one thing, and I think that's an important thing to understand. I'm not putting my faith in every member of ISKCON. Yeah, we'll give up. I'm putting my faith in Krishna. My faith in Krishna does not depend on how every single person behaves. Just like you have faith in a university, that's not based on the behavior of every single student. No matter how good the university is, some of the students are just going to be going to parties and wasting their time. That's just what it is. The other thing that's on a negative note. On a positive note, it was very interesting for me when I was working in a government school. The contrast, because I'd always worked in a Gurukula, the contrast between the behavior of the devotees and the behavior of the materialists. I really noticed it, and particularly what I noticed, because honestly, sometimes the materialistic people in some ways, so a particular materialistic person might be better in some ways than a particular devotee. That's just the honest truth. But what I found in general was that the materialistic devotees had no sense, even theoretical, that they were anything other than perfect. You know, sometimes I get irritated with the superficial, social, false, humble talk that we do in ISKCON. I sometimes find it irritating. You know, oh, people, I'm not really any good at anything. I'm just useless. You know, that kind of stuff. So sometimes it really irritates me. But I thought, at least we say that. We may not mean it. You know? It may be just something so that the devotees will give us our kitchery. But at least we say it. And out there, they don't even say that. So out in the world, people assume that they are wonderful people, that their motives are all sterling, that they don't have any envy, that they don't have any greed, that they don't have any lust, or if they do, that those are good things. Either they think they have no greed or they're proud of their greed. So it was very interesting for me to have that job and see that difference. So I would agree with you with a caveat. In other words, do you need something? Are you worried about me?
Just confirming that you're talking only about the materialistic people or the devotees who have materialistic people. Sorry, I was a bit confused there.
I get confused too. I can't figure it out either. But right now I was talking about just gross materialistic people. You can ask me if you have a question.
Sure.
Okay? I may be very uncultured as an American, but one thing I am is very approachable. In America, we don't have a hierarchical culture at all. I mean, we do actually, but we pretend that we don't. So one of the social constructs in America is that we have no classes. Of course we do. We have no class distinctions. Everybody's equal to everybody. That's not really how we live, but that's our pretense. And I was brought up with that real heavy pretense. So the benefit of that is that you can ask me pretty much anything. I mean, I might say I'm not going to answer that, but you can ask me and I won't be offended. Just don't worry about it. Yeah, what I found with the gross materialistic people is that they had no sense that there was anything wrong with them. That even a very materialistic devotee has at least a theoretical sense that I really have problems. That I am fallen. That I am full of lust, greed, envy, and illusion, and those are bad things. And they cause me and the other people around me pain. Again, there may be no realization about it, but at least we have the idea. The materialistic people don't even have the idea. So what I found was that dealing with materialistic people was very difficult. It was just really, really difficult because they were just always convinced the way they saw things was the way it was. Their motives were all good. They basically had no problems. It was sort of phenomenal. And that helped me to appreciate that the faults that I saw in the devotees, real or just that I saw them, that at least the devotees were going in the right direction. And I would say that what you mentioned, that really being able to see this contrast, that devotees, even beginning devotees, even more or less materialistic devotees, want a different level. Oh, thank you, Urmila. Just take 3 of those, one of each of those, and find a place and be happy. There's 3 there. There you go, all set. That a lot of this does, in fact, depend on what kind of people we are. So the appreciation. Is that all right that I went on a little bit of a side? Is that okay?
No.
And you'll be honest with me too?
Yeah.
Okay. So this appreciation of devotees is very much dependent on what kind of people there are in the morning program. It really makes a difference. So there are some places in the Hare Krishna world where children are not respected or appreciated or wanted. And there are some people that manage projects that just see the children as children rather than seeing them as Vaishnavas who happen to be right now very temporarily in children's bodies that I may be in another 50 years. You know, they don't stop and think that, wait a minute, am I sure I'm going to attain perfection in this life? And if I'm not, guess what? I'm going to be one of those children screaming and throwing things and whatever in the morning program. So I've been in all sorts of places. I've been in places where the local GBC and the local temple president is very loving to the children and very accepting and very welcoming of the children. I've been in temples where the local authorities and by extension the local devotees help engage the children in service, the children and teenagers in service, so that the children and the young adults really feel part of the community. And I've been in communities where the children are really not treated very nicely at all. And it's always, you know, get them out, get them out, get them out, get them out. And then I say, okay, by the time they're 18, they'll say, fine, you know, I'll go. So I really believe from my own experience that even if the devotees are wonderful people in general, that in order for the children to experience that, the devotees have to be wonderful towards the children in particular, not just wonderful in a general way. I suggested a resolution for the GBC many years ago, which was voted down, and that was that every new temple construction have in it a room for mothers of young children, so that they can hear the class on the speaker. I said, if you're going to construct a temple, make that part of your construction. One of the nicest places I've seen is at New Vrajdam in Hungary, where they've done that. There's a really nice room, has a sink in it, you know, a changing area. Do you call them nappies or diapers? Nappies, you're very British. So where they have a place to change the nappies, and there's toys for the children, and then there's speakers in there, you can hear the class. But unfortunately that isn't done everywhere. And as I said when I brought it up, it was like, no, it's too much trouble, we're not going to do that. So you do want to be careful, and we are going to look at having morning programs at home and having morning programs at the temple. But if you end up at any point in a community where the leaders are not child-friendly, and you have young children, my humble suggestion to you is that you have most of your programs at home. That you go to the temple with your children maybe just once or twice a week, rather than exposing your children to an atmosphere that is very negative for them. Because if you're exposing them to a negative atmosphere in the name of Krishna consciousness, then they may, instead of associating Krishna consciousness with loving, caring people, they're going to associate Krishna consciousness with something else. And then you may end up with young adults who say, well, it's a great philosophy. And again, the irony is that those people may be wonderful people in general, but they may not have that mood toward the children. Do you understand what I'm saying? They may be very wonderful with the guests, they may be very wonderful with their friends, and then they just see the children as children, which is quite unfortunate. So one has to have some, in other words, I don't see that this is an automatic result of giving kids regular sadhana. I see that this is a result of what kind of devotees they're associating with. Now, it should be obvious that if you're having a program at home, then the devotees that your children are associating with are, if suppose you're having your own program at home, then what adult devotees are your children associating with? Yourself. So, to be very careful about what is your mood towards your children. You know, is my mood towards my children that my children are a disturbance for my sadhana? You know, I wish I could just get my children to go to sleep so I can do my sadhana. Having fun, John? Your training in photography is ringing. This is my grandson, by the way, John. Gudumai was going to give him some photography training, so.
We had some at the wedding already.
Oh, you already did some at the wedding? Okay. At least they're not playing the drums anymore. So if this is one of our goals, and I actually give a whole seminar just on this point, is that if you want the children to appreciate devotees, and to see that it's not just a nice philosophy in a book, but that the people who practice the philosophy are also nice, then the first person you have to get to be nice is yourself. And to have genuine love for your children, and to give them an atmosphere of genuine love and affection, especially when you're performing Krishna conscious sadhana. So during the time of doing sadhana is not the time to be giving them strong chastisement. Then they'll think, okay, sadhana time is just when I get in trouble. I know devotees who are now like in their 30s, who were raised as devotees, and they were in some very harsh environment doing japa, and they just don't want to chant japa. Every time they pick up their beads, they remember somebody yelling at them. Behave in the temple room, that's offensive. So in the name of training them, we can end up creating the opposite atmosphere. Okay, another benefit for sadhana for children. Yes?
Yeah, I just had a question.
Yes.
Maybe a sidetrack.
Sidetrack, if we have to one, we have time for sidetracks.
You know how you were mentioning about devotees needing to know how to respect or this is not, we are talking about our children, but as an Indian, any children I as a rural man would treat younger children like children and make fun of them, or have either tea with them or play with them. But what's the right way to deal with children?
Well, that's such a big topic. Let's just say, for the purpose of this discussion and the purpose of encouraging the children in practicing sadhana bhakti, that you want to really welcome them. Children are noisy, dirty, not very sense-controlled. They don't have much control over their mind. They're very restless. They have sort of all the opposite qualities to that which you want to have in a sadhana program. Right? And that's just what they are. They won't be like that forever. But it's just how they behave as children. And to love them for what they are. As one, I think he's about 24 now. When he was my student, when he was, how old was he? I guess he was about 8 or 9. And during Tulsi Artik, he would race around Tulsi. So the other devotees in the temple, especially those of them who never had children, they'd come to me and say, Urmila, can't you do something about this child? And I said, okay, his father runs both a restaurant and a temple. His mother works half day in the restaurant, half day distributing books. I said, his parents are super high energy people. I said, this child also has a lot of energy. It's just that he's a child and he doesn't know what to do with it. I said, wait till he's 12, it'll go away by itself. And it did. When he was 12, he just calmed down. Now he just took initiation, just like maybe a week ago. He's one of the main persons in the 24-hour kirtan in Vrindavan. And temples pay to have him travel all over the world to lead kirtan. And he's still a very high energy person. He's the kind of person that can lead a kirtan for 4 or 5 hours straight, going down the street in Rath Yatra. But when he was 8 years old, he was racing around Tulsi. So I think part of it is really understanding that children are going to act like children. They really are. And just because they're devotee children doesn't mean they won't act like children. We have some, like Narada Muni didn't act like a child as a child. That's what's explained in the Bhagavatam. That even when he was a child, he wasn't very fond of playing, and he was, very mild. But that's not always true. Srila Prabhupada as a child would throw tantrums. He threw a tantrum once because his father would only buy him one toy gun. And he said, I want one for each hand. And of course, the naughtiest child is Krishna. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a pretty naughty child also. So to accept that children are that's how children behave. Not try to make the children become immediately adults when they're 2 and 3 years old, or even 8 and 9 years old. They're allowed to be children. Obviously they have to get discipline and training, but not to the point that they have to behave like little adults. And then the other thing is seeing the child as a potential adult. So seeing the child who's very active as, well, this is someone who may do a lot for Mahaprabhu's movement when they're older. Right now, they don't really have a good outlet for it. I mean, there's this one child that I've dealt with who's very intelligent, but uses her intelligence. She's just 6 years old. She uses her intelligence not always in the best way. Her parents joke that she should be hired out to the child-proofing companies to test their equipment. Because whatever child-proofing the parents have done in the house, she's able to figure out how to unlock it. And she's a very, very clever child. And very high risk taker also. So this is the kind of person who could preach in Muslim countries, you know, or is going to invent something incredible. She thinks in a very different way. She's very Krishna conscious also. I mean, she'll be talking in her sleep about Krishna's pastimes that no one has taught her, which is interesting. I remember once when she was very little, she was carrying a pot on her head and she was saying, I'm a gopi, I'm a gopi. She was like 2. And her older sister said, okay, let's do a play and you can be Radharani. She said, me, no Radharani, gopi. I don't know who the kid is, but she's a handful to take care of. She's really a handful. She's very difficult. But if you look at her and see, okay, in what way could this manifest positively as an adult? Right now, as a child, it manifests mostly as something negative. I got an email once from some parents who said, our 3-year-old daughter is very stubborn. And I said, you're so lucky that you have such a determined child. I said, because someday everyone's going to tell her to drink and smoke and go out with the boys, and she's going to say no. I said, so the point is you've got to teach her what to be determined for and how to be determined. So I see a welcoming attitude towards children, allowing children to be children. Srila Prabhupada really allowed children to be children. Don't try to force them into an adult mold when they're very small. And then see their so-called bad qualities more as how you can turn that to a potential good as an adult, rather than how you can just try to stop it. And finally, I would say that as they get older, giving them some positive engagement. At least by the age of 14, hopefully by the age of 11, start giving them some positive service in Krishna consciousness. And I think also on a practical level when they're little, having some facility, like I said, having a room for mothers with young children, having some practical facility so the children can be children without driving everybody else crazy. Because you also have to respect the adults who don't have children and can't relate to them. And having some facility for the little children means that the mothers of those little children can focus on their sadhana and not constantly be worrying that their children are disturbing everybody else. So those are some practical arrangements. Making prasadam available to the little children early in the morning. I mean, that's what Srila Prabhupada did. He would make sure that some of the Mangal Artik sweets went to the children right after Tulsi Puja. You know, you can't expect that the children aren't going to eat anything until 9 o'clock in the morning. So making some practical facility. I was in a temple once where they didn't want to give the children any prasadam in the morning. They said, no, we're saving that for the life members. So I think it's an attitude and it's also practical. Thinking, what can we do to facilitate the children? When you're planning a festival, you know, or you're engaged somehow in a festival, what can we do that will engage the children? Not just that everything's on an adult level and the children are bored and they're just running around outside without any structure. So those are, I think part of it is an attitude and part of it is practical. How you can practically demonstrate that you care about the children. And then, you know, we're talking about individual things. We all have our own personality. We're all going to relate to the children in different ways. I don't think there's some sort of absolute formula. All right. So this is we talk quite a lot about this topic, but I think it's very important. Because I think part of our purpose definitely in giving children regular sadhana is that they'll want to be part of the community of devotees. Okay, other benefits for regular sadhana for the children.
One incidental benefit is that they learn to chant mantras and then maybe develop interest in learning Sanskrit and
Okay.
scriptures.
All right, so maybe we put this under spiritual knowledge. So they learn mantras. Maybe later interest in Sanskrit. is also reminding me, one of my former students is a Gurukul teacher in Dallas, and she was saying how she remembered that in the morning program in Detroit, I used to teach all the children Brahma Samhita. Because it was a 2-hour japa time, so we had half that time was for my japa, and the children would chant for about 20 minutes for the little ones, 40 for the older ones, and then they would have coloring time. Well, I chanted some more, but I couldn't expect them to just be quiet for too long. So then I gave them a class in Brahma Samhita for an hour every morning. And she was remembering that and teaching that to her students there in Dallas. So I think that's something, that especially is a fact. If the children are encouraged to chant in the temple programs, you know, in many temples, the children are allowed even to lead some of the kirtans. I've been in temples where young children are leading, say, the Nisinga prayers or other prayers. And if the children are encouraged to chant the Sanskrit verse in the Bhagavatam class, and also if you have a separate class where the children can learn other mantras during the morning program. This can happen also at home. You know, if you're having a program at home, it's very easy to have the children chant the Bhagavatam verse and take turns chanting the prayers and learning all the prayers. Make sure that they know something of the meaning of the prayers. I know one devotee who created a songbook where she translated all the prayers into English poetry in such a way that they could be sung to exactly the same tune as we use for the Sanskrit and Bengali prayers. And so the children will also, she's done this for children, so the children can sing the prayer in Sanskrit or Bengali and then sing the same prayer in English to the same tune. That's really interesting. But you do want to be careful. One joke among our youth who've been brought up in the movement is how many of them thought that we were offering obeisances to groceries every morning. Think about that one. Okay, other benefits. Yes?
Being in a regular sadhana can help them in more focused and less distracted with other things. They don't have much time left for less distracted.
In terms of time or in terms of development of character or both?
I'd say both. They won't have much time left for other things. They're more focused in what they should be doing.
Okay, so maybe less time for nonsense?
Watching television, video games.
That's what we get.
Is that what you meant, practically? And also maybe that they've learned how to focus their mind.
Yeah, focusing mind can help them in both spiritual and material, like in their jobs or whatever they want to do in their life.
Maybe we could put here, like mental focus. Can we put that here?
Yes.
Any others?
Yeah, one under morality and ethics, that is basically compassion for animals, you can say.
Oh, okay.
Everyone.
Everyone.
Also, there's a lot of instruction in morality and ethics in the Shastra. There's a lot in the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, that focuses on morality and ethics. What about physical health? Some health benefits for regular sadhana.
It teaches them about hygiene.
Okay. Is that how you spell it?
Healthy food.
I-E-Y.
I mean, if you do have a morning program, it's certainly very healthy to get up in the morning. All right. I'm sure we can think of some more. Yes?
They become more realistic, like if they lose in competition, they will accept when we have competition between devotee children, they accept if they lose. But in non-devotee children, if they lose, they become so frustrated, depressed.
I think we could maybe put that under morality and ethics. that they're a more balanced, tolerant person. Which of course helps in general with life.
Helps in molding their personality.
Where can we put that? Maybe as a separate. You? Use a you? In America, that would mean like mildew. I'm going to put also developing and directing. I think it helps the child to not only, I'd say, mold their personality in a way that would be most helpful for them in their life. Yes?
Going back to this sense of competition between the children, sticking to the devotee children only, is it a reality that they don't feel bad or they don't feel frustrated if they lose, or we should we remove that sense of competition from within the devotee community so they don't, it's a natural reaction, isn't it?
Well, it's funny because Prabhupada encouraged a lot of competition for book distribution. And he said competition gives life. But it shouldn't be envious competition. We all have our personalities, and some people just by nature are, have more or less struggle with losing than others, let's just put it that way. So I've seen some devotee children who really don't like to lose. But I do think that being in Krishna consciousness certainly helps them to deal with that better and faster. I wouldn't assume that because you have an 8 or 9-year-old child who has a fit every time they lose a game, that means you're doing something wrong in your Krishna consciousness, because some people are just more competitive by nature than others. Now again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just thinking of one child who really didn't like to lose. And one devotee child, and none of the other children, after all, ever wanted to play with him. Because he was such a sore loser. But at this point now, as an adult, nice, how old is he? Somewhere around 30. He's a very determined and focused individual. He's not a sore loser anymore. But he doesn't give up very easily. And he's not, if things don't work out, he's not just like, oh, well, whatever. If he has some goal or some project, he'll really work through it, even if it has a lot of obstacles. So again, there's a question of seeing the good sides to things. But I do see the Krishna consciousness, that practice in Krishna consciousness does help children to give up envy.
What age should we introduce the competition among the children?
Do you have to introduce competition among children?
When the classes are happening, when children of devotees are coming together, we do have competitions in the classes. So what is the ideal age when there should be competition among them, saying that you are first, you are second, you are third?
I don't know. I think children naturally compete when they're even very little. Don't 3- and 4-year-old children compete?
But is it good at that age to...
It's good or bad, they just do it.
I don't officially, when children...
Officially? Prabhupada didn't like the Krishna Bowl competition for the children. Now, I don't know if he didn't like it because of the competition and the pressure, or he didn't like it because it was a trivia game. You know what a trivia game is? You know what a trivia game is? Where you're asked detailed questions and you get points if you know. It's very fact-based. So, Srila Prabhupada was not very interested, nor did he put much emphasis on getting all the facts exactly right. That was not how Srila Prabhupada defined scriptural knowledge. And in fact, there was one devotee very early in the movement who wanted to get a book of Bhagavatam stories published by the Sri Chinmoy organization. And Prabhupada made 2 objections. He said, first of all, we don't want to hear Bhagavatam from their perspective. And the other thing he said is, we're not so interested in the stories, we're interested in the philosophy. Which I found a fascinating statement. And you find that when Srila Prabhupada would tell stories, he always weaves it in philosophy. I'm up to being challenged on this. If you can find any instance where Prabhupada just told a story and just told the story. But I can't think of any. That his stories were always either he wove philosophy into the stories or he was weaving stories into philosophy. And Prabhupada wasn't that careful about making sure he got all the details of a story right when he told it. It wasn't his meditation. And he would sometimes tell stories and mix up this fact and the other fact. And it wasn't his concern. His concern was what is the mood and what is the relationship. So I say Prabhupada's emphasis was on philosophy and on mood. So maybe that's why he objected to the Krishna bowl, because it was putting the emphasis on the wrong thing. And I've seen even exams for adults, like Bhakti Shastri exams for adults, that are all just, what's the third line and the purport on this page, kind of thing. Or asking about something that's only talked about in the scripture one time, or that Srila Prabhupada only talks about 1 or 2 times. Like list the steps from Anamoya to Anandamoya. It's only 2 times. It's in one purport and I think in one lecture. So obviously it's not so important. So they're asking questions on minutia rather than, Hare Krishna, please take one each of those 3 papers, rather than asking questions about what's really important. So that might be the reason. And the reason might be that Srila Prabhupada wasn't in favor of the intense competition, and maybe a combination of both, that he didn't want the children subjected to intense competition on minutia. It could be both. Maybe Prabhupada would have been all right with intense competition about something else. I don't know. We don't really have we don't have that much background about it to know exactly what he was objecting to. But he definitely wanted it stopped, and he wanted it stopped immediately. At the same time, Srila Prabhupada encouraged healthy competition among all the devotees, and I don't recall him ever saying that it could only start at a particular age. So I see healthy competition as something, this is really heavy. I see healthy competition as something that's inspiring. So you're doing something. You're doing something wonderful for Krishna, and I see what you're doing, and I'm rejoicing in what you're doing, which then inspires me to do something, not to put you down. Like inspirational stories. We might read some inspirational story. Somebody who overcame great odds, and then we think, well, I can also do that, and I can also overcome the difficulty in my life. So that kind of competition goes on in Goloka Vrindavan. That the cowherd boy is thinking, oh, that cowherd boy sang really nicely for Krishna. Krishna was so happy. I want to sing even better. I'm going to expand Krishna's happiness. Not to put down the other cowherd boy, but to expand Krishna's happiness. So that sort of appreciative, inspirational competition is part of our original spiritual nature. And I would much rather see that in training of children and in training adults. We don't do this very well in training adults either. That instead of trying to repress the material, which is not our philosophy, it's not our philosophy. Our philosophy is not that desires are bad, and inclinations are bad, and personality is bad, and competition is bad. Our philosophy is just that envy is bad. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says the only thing prohibited in the spiritual world is envy. There's no other rules. There's 2 rules, he says. This is in Bhakti Loka, Niyamagraha section. He says, what's allowed is love, and what's prohibited is envy, and that's all. So we are against envy. We are against malice. We are against hatred. We are against cruelty. But we're not against any particular desire or any particular activity. I mean, there may be some activities that are inherently cruel. But other than activities that are inherently cruel, like killing poor animals to eat them, what we want to change is the motive and the mood, much more than the behavior. We want to see how we can turn behavior and desires and inclinations back to their original source. We are not trying to stop desires and inclinations and behavior. That is not our philosophy. That's not our teaching. It's not what's recommended. That is an impersonal path. So you want to be very careful with that. So I don't think it's a question of should we have competition and when should we have competition, but the question should be what kind of competition? What's the mood of competition? What's the goal of competition? How am I modeling competition? What kind of mood am I going to accept in the children?
This might be a little off track, but how do you mold a child who's a little destructive in nature? Not by the environment that he becomes destructive, but in years like that. So how do you mold that child?
I suppose there's careers in destruction. There are people who have careers in destruction. I wonder what they were like as children. Maybe get them engaged in taking things apart to figure out how they work. Something safely that you don't mind that it never gets put back together again. Get old equipment and old things that you don't care about that the kid can take apart and check them out. Try to figure out what's driving. How old a child are we talking about? 2 or 10 or?
2 years old, 3 years old.
It'll pass. Not very important. If it's still going on at 4 or 5, then you might consider that you're looking at some sort of nature. And 2-year-old, it may mean absolutely nothing. It may just be that they're 2. And if you still see it at 4 or 5, that it's really an ongoing thing. I mean, all kids destroy something sometimes. It's just whatever. But then I might try to figure out what's behind it. Is the child just very inquisitive? Always try to see what possible positive way you can turn things to. Instead of trying to stop things, see what you can turn them to. Okay, I have a kid who likes to take things apart and break them. What can they do? Is there something they can help with? Can they help us clean out the garage and, throw out all the junk and break down all the boxes? And can they help us pull weeds in the garden? Or, find some and give the child a positive vision of themselves. You don't want to say to the child, you're a destructive person. Well, I'm so glad that you're curious and you really want to find out how things work and really want to understand things, and give them something that positive they can understand and take apart. But 2 years old, I wouldn't. There's not very many things at 2 years old that you have to be very concerned about. Most of them will adjust. Okay, do we want to work any further on this, or we want to go on to the next thing? Any more comments on this section? Okay, I've been talking a lot about how it's good to have sadhana at a temple, and it's also good to have sadhana at home. I've been bringing that up as a regular theme. Okay, what I'd like to do right now is take a little break. Everybody please just stand up. Stretch. Stretch. And touch your toes. And stretch. Just stretch and move around a bit while I raise the board.